Are you good at telling stories, or are you like me? You tend to ramble on and on and on about a situation without actually giving specific information or actually getting to the point. What if you have the added extra stress of being in an interview? Are you going to be able to relate information about your previous work experience in a timely manner, or to answer those nerve-wracking questions that start with, "Tell me a time when"? In this video, I'll be sharing with you basic tips on how you need to prepare for the interviews, but then at the end, I'm going to be focusing on the STAR method of answering scenario-based questions, because most of your interviews are going to be scenario-based. Why are they scenario-based? Well, most interviewees want to know how you are going to react in a situation, because we all have the book or the textbook knowledge, or we have the past experience of how to do a job, but they need to know how are you going to react in a specific situation, because how you react is going to determine whether you're going to be a good candidate for the job. So there are 5 basic things that you need to know about all interviews. I have covered these things in a previous video, which is actually one of my top videos on my channel on how to prepare for your nursing interviews, and those basic techniques still count, but I'll give you a brief overview of those things. The first thing is dressing. You need to dress professional, because how you present yourself on the outside is how the panel is going to view you and how you're going to be carrying out your work. A good blazer never goes wrong, but if you're in the nursing field, you can never go wrong with your nursing uniform. The second thing is you need to research your potential prospective employer. You need to know what role that you're going to be fulfilling to ensure that your answers are going to be matching the characteristics that they are looking for in that job position. The third thing is punctuality. Please respect yourself and the person that is going to be interviewing you. You do not want them to wait for you, and you also don't want to wait for them. So please ensure that you are punctual. Arrive at least 15 to 30 minutes early, so that you just calm yourself, take a breath, and also just to familiarize yourself with the environment. The fourth thing is practice, practice, practice. Please do not wing your interview, even if you've done so many and I know the questions become quite repetitive. Tailor your answers to each job description that you're going to be interviewing for, and also interact with the people that are in the panel. That shows that you're interactive, that you've got good communication skills and teamwork. So ensure that you are practicing. And the last thing is, don't forget to say thank you. Even if you do not like how the interview went, or even if you do not get the job, there's nothing wrong with being courteous and thanking the panelists for taking their time to interview you. They liked you when they saw your application, hence they wanted to see something in you during the interview. Even if you didn't make the job, they still had the respect for you and they actually liked what you brought to the table. So still say thank you for the opportunity that they've given you. You never know what doors might be opened with just a thank you. So now that we've covered the basics of preparing for an interview, how you're meant to be, etc., let us now focus on the STAR method of interview. So the STAR method of answering interview questions is a process of answering questions through storytelling by laying out the situation, the task, the action, and the result. Most interview questions are based on scenarios to see how you would react in a certain situation. This is to check how you critically think and also to observe your behaviors during certain situations. This will be an opportunity for the panelists to be able to see how you handle yourself during a stressful situation, how you handle yourself when interacting with others, whether that's doctors, your boss, your manager, etc., and also how you see yourself. And this is where your strength and weakness type of questions come into play. So it's important for you to remember the acronym, because that will give you a layout of how you answer these questions. So I'll go step by step explaining what each letter of the STAR acronym means, and then at the end I'll give you a scenario and break it down according to the acronym. So the STAR acronym stands for situation, which is where you set the scene and give the necessary details of your example. T stands for task, which is when you describe what your responsibility was in that situation. Then A represents action, which is when you explain exactly what steps you took to address the situation. And then R is for result, which is when you share what outcomes your actions achieved. By using these 4 components to shape your anecdote, it is much easier to share a more focused answer, providing the interviewer with a more digestible but compelling narrative of what you did. It is focused on determining your behavior trends. So when answering these questions and using the STAR method, as much as you can have the STAR method layout correct, you also need to be able to choose the correct scenario or the correct example to give to whatever question you're going to be given. Hence, it is important for you to think of examples ahead of time so that you're just more prepared and that you have more stories at the back of your mind able to share. So at the end of this video, I would ask you to go down in the description box. There is a link where there is sample questions that you can go through, and you can use those sample questions to think of stories and scenarios where you have been put in these different situations and sort of create answers for those type of scenarios that might come up using the STAR method. So going into more detail on the acronym. Firstly, you need to lay out the situation. So this is when you give the interviewer a brief, concise statement of what the situation was like that you were involved in. It's very tempting for you to give all sorts of examples and extra information to make the story colorful or for them to understand what situation you were in. Hence, it's important, if you're someone who's not good at compiling your sentences together or you're not a great speaker, it is important for you to practice to make sure that you get to the point. This was the situation, this was how I was involved in. So you need to get to the point as quickly as possible without rambling and giving too many details. I would say keep to 2 sentences per acronym. After laying out the situation, you need to highlight the task. So this is the part of the story where you have mentioned what the situation was, but now you need to be very specific about what was your involvement in this situation. What was your responsibilities? What was the objectives of you being involved in that situation before you specify what you actually did that led to the result. Do not mistake this part to the action part of the acronym. So you've laid out the situation, you've now specified what was your responsibility, then comes now the part where you share how you took action. So at this point, you've shown the interviewer that you had a certain responsibility in this situation. These were the objectives that were set out for you to complete. Now you're giving them specifics of exactly what did you do. Did you call someone? Did you involve someone from the multidisciplinary team, etc.? So this is when you give them a bit more detailed step-by-step of what you did. However, you still need to be concise so that you do not ramble and give a lot of unnecessary details. This is your chance to showcase what your skills are, how you were involved, how dedicated you were to this situation, how you were trying to make a difference in this situation. So you need to be very sure that the details that you are giving put you in the best light possible. So now at the end, you now discuss the results. What did your actions lead to? What was the impact that you brought about? Interviewers don't only care about what you did, they also want to know why it mattered. So the impact that you had on the situation, what was the emotional aspect of it? How did it affect the other person? How did it affect the patient? Is there numbers that you can use to back up your results? Is there long-term effects that you could showcase? If unfortunately the results were negative, you can still explain that, but also show the positives or the things that you learned in addition to that. So if you're involved in a conflict with a patient and you took a certain number of actions and then the result was not what you expected, you can say, yes, it was not as expected. I'm taking this as a learning curve. This is what I learned. So even if the result ends up being negative, find a way to highlight something positive from it or something that you learned. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an example, then I'm going to break down the response to ensure that you sort of get an idea of where each part of the acronym falls into place. But you can also go down in the description box, there's another breakdown of more examples of how to use the STAR method. So our question is, tell me about a time when you dealt with an unhappy or a difficult patient or family member. Situation would be, I once had a patient who had a new order for a wound care. His responsible party did not like how I dressed his wound. She thought I should have used a different type of dressing. To ease her concerns, I reassured her that I was following the doctor's orders. In layman's terms, I then explained the treatment order to her step by step and asked if she had any questions. She let me know that she was unaware of the order change and thanked me for taking the time to explain everything to her in a way she could understand. I apologized that the new orders were not relate to her, and let her know that I was available if she had any more questions. So this is a simple example of how you can use the STAR method to break down your stories to ensure that it is concise and you do not ramble, because you do not have a lot of time in these interviews and you need to get to the point quickly, accurately, but also showcasing your best interests. So just a few things that you need to remember when you're giving your stories or when you're giving your response. Number one, be very careful when you're giving details of a story that you do not violate the patient's HIPAA rights or your POPIA Act and so forth. So if you're going to be giving examples, don't be too specific about the details of the patients, like their age, their diagnosis, which hospital they were in, and so forth. So you are allowed to say patient John Smith. It's a fake name. They were admitted to this hospital. I was doing the admission and so forth, just to protect the patient's privacy. Even though you're in an interview, you still need to protect their privacy. The next thing is, don't speak negatively about the patient or the caregiver. It highlights very badly on you. It shows that you're bad mouthing others. Even if you had a negative experience with that care worker or that patient, you still need to spin it in a positive way to show what you learned from that situation. The third thing is, if you did something wrong in that situation, it is okay to acknowledge it. It shows that, one, you're willing to learn and you take responsibility for your actions. The fourth thing is, use examples that showcase your skills, your adaptability, and your interaction with team members, because they want to know what things are you good at, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how are you going to interact with others, and how are you planning on improving yourself. Because every employer, they want to know that they are hiring the best person for the job. Therefore, you need to show them that you are the best person for the job. And the last thing is, don't rush yourself. Even if you can't think of something in the spot, you don't have to just come up with a random story in the spot. You're allowed to take a moment to think, like, oh yeah, in this case. And guys, most of these scenarios that they might ask you, it might not even be related to the job that you did, but it can be personal based, it can be something that you did in school, something in your own family, etc. They're all about wanting to know what your personality is like, and your personality is not only showcased in your job, it is showcased in all aspects of your life. So your stories can be from any aspects of your life other than your job, unless if they specify that the example you're going to be giving is based on an interaction with a colleague and so forth. So I really hope that this method will help you to be able to answer these interview-based questions, because in most cases, all the questions you're going to get are scenario based. You obviously get the basics. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and your weaknesses? What are the things that you're working on? Those are basics that you'll be asked, but everything else will be scenario based. Hence, using this method to allow you to be able to lay out the situation in the most effective way, show your involvement in this whole situation, and how your actions led to a good result and what you learned from that opportunity. So I wish you all the best if you're going to be interacting in any interview, whether it is in a professional setup, personal, and so forth. So I wish you the best. Until next time, have an awesome one. Bye guys.